very good afternoon to everyone for joining today's session on what is a hot topic on outlook on US immigration. Today, I'm joined alongside Prashanthi Reddy. Prashanthi is an award-winning immigration attorney specializing in immigration law. And she comes with over 25 years of experience now. She is recognized nationally as well as internationally. One of the most recent recognition is she's being listed by Forbes as one of New York City's best immigration lawyers in 2024, amongst other recognitions and achievements. So I'll hand it over to Prashanthi to start the proceedings on what happens to be an exciting topic for everyone involved. So Prashanthi, over to you.
Sure. So today we thought we'll talk about, what everybody's thinking about. That is the U.S. Presidential elections and how it impacts us from an immigration point of view. That's our main focus. We don't care about the politics of it, but we care about the impact that one party winning over the other party winning on, immigration. But first, just a quick update with reference to the visa bulletins. As we all know, September visa bulletin is out. And for those of you who don't know what a visa bulletin is, certain green card numbers are available every year, 140,000 to be precise, employment-based green card numbers. Same number of or similar number of family-based green card numbers are available every year. And so if that number exceeds, then you cannot get your green card. Basically, you cannot file the last step, which is the 485. So your visa number has to be available for you to file your 485 petition. The visa number availability is usually you can look at it by tuning into the Department of State website, which is the visa bulletin, travel.gov. If you go to travel.gov, you can look at the visa bulletin. The visa bulletin will have tables, several tables, employment-based tables, as well as family-based tables. If you go to the employment-based table, if that's what you're interested in, then you look at the category that you're under, whether it's EB2, EB1, EB3, and then you look at your priority date. If your priority date has reached or has passed, then you can file your 485. So that's what a visa bulletin is. So for the September visa bulletin, this is the last visa bulletin of this year, and that's why it's significant. And we'll also talk a little bit about the outlook, what to expect for the October visa bulletin, what to expect very briefly for green card numbers in next month, which will be the next fiscal year. For September, luckily there was no retrogression for India. All the dates remain the same as August, which is good news. So you can continue to file your 485s if your visa number has been reached. There was retrogression for EB3, employment-based worldwide category, not for Indian and Chinese nationals, but for other countries, there was EB3 retrogression, meaning the EB3 dates went back, and that was, I guess, expected because they kept saying that it will go back. What is the outlook for October? We're hoping that there will be some forward movement for EB1 India. USCIS, or rather the Department of State, has already said that there is still heavy demand for EB2 and EB3 India categories. So we might expect some forward movement, maybe by a few months for EB2 and EB3, but nothing significant unless something changes. We are expecting that the dates for filing table will be used as opposed to the final action dates table. Dates for filing table usually is better than the final action date tables because the dates are ahead. They're allowing you to file your 485 before the dates actually become current because they're hoping that you're filing in advance because they're hoping that by the time your case is processed, your date will become current. So it's an advanced filing. And so the dates for filing always looks better. So In October, we're expecting that the dates for filing table will be used for family as well as employment based, and that will be continued to be used hopefully until January or even until March some years. So this year, the total number of green cards available were 140, but the actual green cards for employment based were about 167,000, I believe. This is because of the numbers added from the unused family based category. What are we expecting for next year? I think more of the same. For example, uh, the green card numbers more than doubled during COVID because no family-based cases were being filed outside the country because all the consulates were closed. Um, and since then, we've been noticing that the consulates have all opened up and they're processing cases more and more rapidly. And they've now, as of last year, they're back to their normal processing, so all the numbers are being used up. So for next year, we're hoping that there will still be more than 140,000 numbers because there's always some trickle down from the other categories of employment based, from worldwide, as well as from the family based categories, and trickles down to the numbers that are backlogged, and that's usually India and China, EB2 and EB3 numbers. So we're hoping that there will be some additional numbers available next fiscal year as well. Let's go to the next uh, slide and let's start our topic. So let's dive right into today's topic, which is basically impact of the elections on immigration, what to expect. Let's start off with what happened under Biden's administration, the last 4 years, and then we'll go on to what happened under Trump's 4 years of administration. And then we can go on to see what to expect under if Kamala Harris gets elected and what to expect if Trump gets elected from the immigration perspective. So to start off with Biden, if you can go to that slide. So immigration impact under Biden. The most important, I think, thing that most people discuss is the border. Um, and newspapers, media, everyone discusses what's happening at the border, how many people are being let in, how many people are being given asylum, refugee status, etc., etc. How many illegal people are entering into the country without inspection, uh, what enforcement is taking place. So that is with reference to not so much legal immigration, but illegal entry into the United States and also asylum. Asylum, again, is legal entry because they are claiming asylum at the border. So, in response to record migration in 2022 and 2023, the Biden administration revamped border enforcement policies. They combined incentives for arrivals at ports of entry with stricter enforcement between, the official crossings, and established a kind of a temporary pathway for some nationalities. So what does that mean? Basically, they increased enforcement policy, and it's a misnomer that the Democratic Party just allows open borders because that's not true. Under any administration, there are no open borders. So they have, and there is, only certain number of people that United States can, afford to let in. So unfortunately, even though there's strife and there is, um, there are a lot of asylees, refugees coming in from those other areas, and there are humanitarian concerns. There's only so much the US can do to allow, those people in. So instead, what they've been doing is they have rightly, in my opinion, made enforcement at the border. They've made it tougher, and they've also given incentives for arrival. So um, what they've done is they've gone into the countries where there is where people are migrating from, so South America, Mexico, Nicaragua, and they have tried to see what the issues are and what is causing them to come to the US and trying to improve conditions there in those countries. It's difficult to do, and it's a slow process, but that's what Harris as vice president was tasked with, and that's what she's been doing. Also, they've given a legal pathway for some of our neighboring countries, such as Nicaragua, etc., so that they have some visas available for them to come in legally, and they can process those visas, almost like work visas, for blue collar jobs and uh, agricultural and uh, jobs that don't require a bachelor's degree. So they've made some visas available for those kind of jobs, and so these people can apply in their country and then come legally to the US and work. So the establishment of those incentives, there has been some improvement, obviously, in illegal border crossings and a flood of people coming to the border and seeking asylum. But despite all those efforts, it's an inevitable. There are many challenges that remain at the border. For instance, on December 19th, a record of 12,000 people showed up at the US-Mexico border on a single day. That's the highest on a single day, December 19th of last year, for whatever reason. So, those problems continue, and they're trying to find common sense solutions to the problem, but that we've always had that problem, and I think we'll continue to have it unless situation changes in the home countries, right, wherever these refugees are coming from. Biden restored prosecutorial discretion. So basically, what is prosecutorial discretion? So when prosecutorial discretion is that the USCIS has the authority to decide who they want to prosecute and who they want to prioritize and who they don't want to prosecute, because they have only limited resources, right? So that has always been there, but under various governments, it kind of comes back up, is revived, or some governments don't use that, and then they just prosecute everyone, and there is a huge backlog then. And so the people that deserve to get their process and their green card or their case decided quickly, it takes several years for them. So under Trump's administration, they had completely removed prosecutorial discretion. They brought it back under the Biden administration, and the US Supreme Court also revived a policy that allowed the government to prioritize arrests and removal of non-citizens who threaten public safety or border security. So, even under the present government and previously, these guidelines allow authorities to consider case-specific and suspend actions against low priority individuals. So, for example, if a person is out of status and they're 60 years old and they have never been arrested and they are not a threat to the US security, then courts will often dismiss that case or stop prosecuting them, or just stop that case and then take up a more pressing case. For example, they will prosecute, say, a person who's out of status and ICE has caught them and they have committed a felony, then they would rather, turn their attention towards that case and prosecute that case, rather than giving priority to cases that for people who are harmless, right? So ICE dismissed or paused in 2023 119,000 cases, and immigration judges removed from their docket 208,000 non-priority cases from their docket. So this opened up, um, uh, a lot of time for judges to prosecute cases that had to be prosecuted, and also ICE was able to use their time more efficiently to catch those felons who, are a threat to public safety. But despite all these efforts, of course, courts remain overwhelmed. Um, but I must say that their processing has improved tremendously since Trump's government during Trump's time, in fact, there were not enough judges and there were a lot of vacancies and those posts were not filled. And so that increased the problem and increased the backlog. Also, with reference to legal immigration, under Biden's administration, legal administration rebounded in 2023. Nearly 1.2 million immigrants became lawful permanent residents, and about 10.4 million non-immigrant visas were issued. I think the highest since 2015. Also, because of the pandemic and because of the efforts of the Biden administration, they've put in a lot of effort into modernizing the immigration system. And this was, so virtual um, employment, doing virtual interviews. Um, so the judges were doing virtual interviews, visa interviews were being conducted virtually. So this has greatly improved the processing time for visas. And also they have introduced online filing of a lot of petitions. H1Bs um, you can file H1Bs online since this year. You can file a lot of other applications, I-539s, N400, which is citizenship applications, can be filed online. So a lot of applications can now be filed online, and this has improved USCIS processing time. Processing time was horrendous under the Trump administration because that was just not a priority, right? So they basically didn't care. So, but despite all this, there still remain significant backlogs. And the backlog is because of the green card numbers, because there is a visa backlog because there are no visa numbers available. So there are about 7.6 million, and mostly Indian nationals and Chinese nationals waiting for their green card because there's no visa numbers available. And there is USCIS also has a processing time backlog, and there are about 9 million pending applications with USCIS. And this is as a result of the high demand of people filing for green cards. But this year and under the Biden administration, they have used up all the green card numbers. They have not allowed, or at least they say that they have not allowed any green card numbers go to waste. And we have seen significant improvement in the processing times. Also, USCIS announced a new system for the H-1B visa lottery to curb fraud. So they've taken, some incentives to, allow H-1B processing to be faster and more efficient as well. And also they have experimented on visa revalidation in the country. So if you have a H-1B visa, the visa is what is stamped in your passport, and you need to file an extension of it. You don't have to go, if your visa is expiring, you don't have to leave the country. You can file a visa extension within the country. So that will really increase the efficiency of the consulate. So they don't have to deal with visa extensions anymore. So they will that will decrease the backlog for them, to spend their resources on other type of cases, on cases that are first time cases, right? So this program was successful. They processed about 20,000 visas this way in January. And we're hoping that they will make this process permanent, and visa revalidation will become, something that will be here to stay. This really helps with people who have to leave the country and then they're stuck outside the country because they don't get their visa and their family is here. They've maybe been living here for 10 years on a H1 and then they go for an extension and they get stuck outside the country. So, this can really help those people not being stuck outside the country and, losing their jobs, etc., by being able to file for their visa in the country. Next slide. So now let's look at what the immigration impact has been under Trump. He is basically pushed back on all kinds of immigration. And he has, to start off with, let's go over this point-wise. There was a ban on nationals coming from many Muslim countries, complete ban, so they could not apply for a visa at all. And there were about 7, 8 countries mentioned, and those countries, there's no real reason given with reference to why they were not allowed into the country, or at least there was no reason that made sense. Just vague national security. I mean, makes no sense. Not everyone coming from a Muslim country is a terrorist, right? So there's no common sense in that kind of policy. Reduction in refugee admissions, so pretty much almost came to a standstill. Trump reduced refugee admissions to their lowest level since the beginning of the refugee admission program since 1980. Also, people who came in illegally and remained, there are many millions of people. It makes no sense to try and arrest every one of them. Again, you're making use, it's impossible to do, and you're making use of the resources that could otherwise be used in a better way. So interior arrests of people who were in the country. I mean, ICE would come and detain them. So they were not actual criminal arrests, but there were a lot of detentions that took place. And of course, arrests, if you committed a crime, even if it was a petty offense, then they were, the law is the same. They will always be arrested if the judge decides that they should serve a sentence. But after that, they were also being picked up by ICE, even for petty offenses. So these, policies reflected that his administration was focused on both limiting new arrivals and increasing enforcement against those, who were already in the country. The other thing that he did was cancellation of DACA. DACA is deferred action for childhood arrivals. So children who came into the country and were became illegal or came in illegally as children for no fault of their own became illegal, and they all are went to school, high school in the U.S., most probably are going to college in the U.S., and they are an important resource for the U.S. economy. And also, they don't know any other country because they're being bought here as children, so they have no other country to go to, and maybe don't even know the language. So there's a lot of sympathy for DACA recipients, and there was a temporary measure that was started, which is DACA deferred action. So they were not deporting or removing them from the country. So they stopped proceedings against them. And they also, under the DACA program, gave them temporary employment authorization. So that was removed by Trump. And also, there is another program called TPS, Temporary Protection Status. A temporary protected status, which is given for right now for nationals of Haiti, Nicaragua, Sudan, Honduras, other countries where there is political strife or terrorist problem, and where people's lives are affected by this, and also where there is, say, weather issues like a devastating hurricane where many people died. So in those instances, there's temporary protected status, so those people are not removed because of the conditions in their home country for a temporary period of time. So under Trump's administration, they removed TPS. And also they've, the last but not the least, increased enforcement So USCIS is a benefits organization which is supposed to be there to give benefits or to give legal status, whether it be family-based or employment-based, to people who apply. Instead, under the Trump administration, USCIS's efforts and resources were all used towards increasing enforcement, which is not even something that they're supposed to be doing. That is done mainly by ICE. So Trump's administration significantly ramped up enforcement within USCIS, leading to a 50%, 52% increase in uh, charging documents being issued. So um, a lot of charging documents were issued during that time. And therefore, the courts were also overrun because for every small thing, they were, asked to come to court. And I'm talking about immigration courts. So they initiated more removal proceedings than any other government. His policy also contributed to a 17% decrease in applications for green cards. So we're talking about legal immigration now. Not only did he increase enforcement, he also reduced drastically legal immigration. So 17% less green cards were issued between the year 2016 and 2019. He also started something called stricter public charge rule. Public charge has always been there. So for people who apply for a green card, the officer will see whether they're likely to become a public charge, meaning take money from the US government in order to sustain themselves. And that's a common sense rule, which is implemented even under Biden and even the previous administrations. But it is implemented in a common sense way. But under the Trump administration, he really increased the scope of that. And he said that anyone who uh, doesn't have a job or is not likely to have a job is likely to be a public judge. And US then officers were um, denying those cases. So for most family-based cases, say you apply for a green card for your mother who is 70 years old, uh, you are filing an affidavit of support saying that you will support her as her child. And so the public charge rule was not really looked at carefully, looked at um, really or enforced because, the officer is looking at your affidavit of support. But under the Trump administration, she would be considered to be a public charge because she has no prospective of getting employment. So they just presume that, you would use welfare to take care of your mother. And thereby a lot of family-based cases were getting denied. Also, with reference to H-1Bs, 30% of the H-1B cases filed, I hope I remember the number correctly or the percentage correctly, but it's around that, were denied, which is a very big number compared to like the 3% or less than 3% that is being denied now. I believe it's less than 1% even. So just to give you an idea that, now there are very few denials, and at the time of the Trump administration, many H1s got denied for reasons that were not, were not lawful. So if you went to court, a lot of people could not afford to go to court for a H-1B denial. But if you did go to court, most probably, a judge would reverse that denial. So a lot of H1s were denied. A lot of H1s were granted only for a short period of time. I know a H1 was granted only for one day. I remember that in under his administration, or for 3 months, or for 1 year, 6 months. So employers were forced to file extensions every few months, and that had, you might as well not have a H1 or shut down the H1B program because no employer is going to do that because the fees are so high for a H1. And every time you file, there is no guarantee that the H1 will actually get approved because of the high denial rate. So pretty much because of all these things put together, he eroded the entire H1B program. So those are a few things that happened under the Trump administration. We can go to the next slide now. So I thought a short segue, and then we'll do a few opinion polls ourselves. We conducted a few opinion polls of what people think. But let's go to a few published opinion polls. Um, with reference to public opinion on immigration levels. Should they remain the same? Should they decrease? Should they increase? Uh, Gallup did an opinion poll on this. And depending on their leaning, so if you're Republican leaning, a lot of people said that immigration should be decreased. Um, and in 2024, in 2023, Republicans said that also that they should be decreased. So if you look at that, independents are kind of halfway. 2024, they were halfway. 2023, they didn't believe, a lot of people didn't believe that they should be decreased. So they see that there's a benefit in immigration even now. A lot of Democratic people believed, very few people believe that immigration should be decreased. Most uh, believe that immigration should stay the same, and there was a 40% that believe that immigration should be increased in 2023. So if you see general levels of immigration are opinion from the US, uh, people think that immigration should stay the same. If you look at the majority of independents and Democrats, it's only the Republicans that think that immigration should be decreased. Next slide. um, let's look at our own poll that we conducted just before this webinar. How do you think the 2024 elections will impact US immigration policies? 57% of people that took this poll said that there will be a major impact. 57%. Minor adjustment, 24%, no significant impact, 10%, and unsure, 10%. So majority of people rightly thought that there will be a change in immigration policy. Another poll that we conducted, what aspect of immigration policy do you find most crucial to this election? 43% wanted reforms in the H-1B visa process. Border security was 18%. Green card processing, again, was second, was 32%. DACA, what I talked about, Dreamers, was 7%. It just shows the demographic of, I guess, that the people that we are speaking to.
And Prashanti, do you have any opinion on this? What's your take on it?
My take is, I think, has come out quite clearly in the previous slides that I presented, uh, that if Trump comes into power, there will be more of Trump and his policies, which I have indicated what they are. Decrease in legal immigration for sure, and that's what I really care about. And decrease in humanitarian immigration as well. So we'll see a decrease in H-1B visas being issued, some policies that might come into play that will make it difficult for people to file H-1Bs. If Harris comes to power, and if there is a majority in the Congress, in the Senate as well as in the Congress, then we can see some real immigration reform. And I'm not sure if that will happen. Again, maybe one party will, control each house. If that happens, then we will see again a deadlock, like we've been seeing over the few years. There has been no clear majority in both the houses, and that's why no immigration reform has been taking place. There was majority for a short period of time, but it didn't last long and not enough time, definitely for comprehensive immigration reform. But I do believe that if there is majority of one of the Democratic Party, then there will be some reform that we can expect. What or to what extent we wait and see.
Noted. I'll move to the next poll.
Next slide. What does the 2024 US election mean for the future?
Sorry, Prashanti, there was one more poll.
Okay. Can you go ahead and discuss
Yeah,
that, Vishal?
yeah, that was a poll on which candidate do you think will be more effective in implementing comprehensive US immigration reforms?
Mm-hmm.
And the results were uh, Kamala Harris got 37% vote, while Trump got 31%. And another significant number was neither, that's 27%, and only 4% felt both equally.
Okay, so that's I guess people do realize what will happen
Yeah.
with reference to immigration at least. That's good. So
Mm,
moving on to the next slide, and I'm
yes.
glad we conducted these slides. It's just good to know also where people stand, at least where our audience stands, and what they need and what they'll benefit from. So that helps us help them better as well,
Yes.
so that we can focus on what they need. Um, so next slide. What the 2024 US election means for the future. It means a lot. There's a lot at stake. Um, so Harris, if she wins, would likely advocate for more inclusive immigration policies, uh, would focus on, pathways to citizenship and more pathways for humanitarian immigration, such as asylum, etc. And also try to increase the pathways for legal immigration as well. Trump would definitely focus on, and which has been a consistent Republican viewpoint recently, would emphasize stricter border controls, reducing immigration. Uh, so, because of these stark differences between the two parties, definitely this is going to be immigration policy that this election is, very polarized, um, because people believe in two different things, right? So uh, it is going to be a polarized election, and the viewpoints are also of the people voting are also very different from each other. Next slide. So what happens if Kamala Harris wins? At least a few things that we understand from her position and what she stated in the past, and in general with reference to the Democratic position, is they will bring a more welcoming approach, with opportunities for DACA recipients, humanitarian border security, border control, comprehensive immigration reform. She would likely push for comprehensive immigration reform, focusing on a pathway to uh, citizenship for undocumented immigrants, or maybe some kind of amnesty kind of program. Because, see, um, practical. It's a practical approach. You have millions of undocumented aliens in the U.S. They are living as under the radar. They are It's dangerous because they're living under the radar. They're not part of the community because they cannot be right now. You cannot deport all those people. It's impossible to. So what should you do? While having stricter enforcement at the border, not allowing this to continue happening, you have to deal with the people in the country. And the only way to do this is to have some kind of a pathway for them to get, um, to become part of the mainstream, and to become and get documentation. And there are various paths for this that have been suggested. Give them temporary work visas after 10 years if they've, paid taxes, if they've been good citizens, if they've never committed any crimes, then give them a pathway to citizenship, a green card, a permanent resident. So they might try to do this again. And restoration of asylum protection. Asylum program was completely dismantled, uh, effectively dismantled, at least from a practical standpoint under Trump. Harris will look to restore and expand asylum protection, uh, family reunification, returning families separated at the border. We know what happened with Trump. There was an inhuman, cruel process of separating children from their parents and putting children in detention facilities separately, even little children, and even babies, I hear. And to this day, there are many children who are still separated from their parents because they have not been able to find their parents. They have not been able to, unify the families. That was just a horrific image and pictures that I saw, of family separation and cruel uh, policies at the border, which I've never seen before in America. So, um, restoration of that kind of family reunification, employment-based immigration. Harris may advocate for reforms to streamline this employment-based process, trying to address backlogs, improving opportunities for high-skilled immigrants. We know the H-1B um, numbers are, really very few. There are only 80,000, not enough for the demand that is there. So trying to increase the H-1B numbers. Hopefully they can do that. And also streamlining the process. Uh, with reference to TPS, streamlining that process as well for TPS. Um, so let's see what happens. But under Kamala Harris, we can either expect more of the same that has happened for the last 4 years, which is not great, but is not bad either. Um, the Senate, we can expect some significant um, changes and reforms in the laws that can help H-1B visa people and help the backlog, the green card priority dates move forward. There are many things that can be done with reference to the green card numbers. For example, if they remove the requirement of a number for for the dependents, that will double or triple the number of green cards available. And the priority dates will move forward very rapidly. And that they can do without having to change the laws. So there are things that even if the Democrats don't have control of both the House and the Senate, they can still do. So let's hope that something good will happen. Next slide. What happens if Donald Trump wins? Then we can expect he will go back to focusing on building a wall across the United States, which is not possible because the border is so huge, and the billions of dollars that will be spent building a wall. First of all, it's not possible, and second, that we don't know where that money will go once it's there were fundraisers uh, and money was collected for building the wall, and we still don't know what happened with reference to that money. So um, and it's not practical to build a wall, and the amount of money can be used much better for enforcement in other ways. More common sense enforcement is required, not building a wall, because that's not possible. So, restrictive asylum and refugee policy, we can expect more of that. More immigration enforcement, as we were talking about, USCIS will stop its business of offering benefits and will instead use its resources for enforcement. He might change the entire immigration system if he can. I don't know if he can without actual law being passed, but if uh, Republicans have the majority of the House and the Senate, then they can pass whatever law they want to, which means removing what he wants to do is, and what he said he wants to do even previously was remove the whole entire H-1B system, remove family immigration completely, and just start a merit-based immigration system, like a point-wise system, like there is in Canada. Well, this could be good, this could be bad. We don't know. Only time will tell. Limiting legal immigration, which might seek to further limit legal immigration, reducing visa programs, imposing stricter eligibility criteria for work visas, and for getting green cards as well. Ending birthright citizenship. He's talked a lot about doing this in his earlier term. He didn't have majority of the House and Senate, so he couldn't. But if he has majority, then he will definitely do this. Um, so if you're born in the US, you'll no longer be a US citizen. You'll have to again apply like everyone else. And just another example of what he wanted to do, what the Republican government wanted to do is increasing the H-1B visa wages. So previously, what they did was what they tried to do is they passed an interim final rule that changed the way the Department of Labor um, looks at prevailing wages. So in this system, they used a different mathematical formula so that the prevailing wage um, was different. So as an example, uh, under their system of calculation, the prevailing wage for like software engineers, let's go to the next slide. I think we have more information there. So there was a survey done by American Policy Analysis, and they found out that the prevailing wages that was introduced based on this new interim final rule, the salaries for petroleum engineers, for example, went up by 100%, so doubled. The more common computer research scientists went up by 55,000. And the other professions went up, computer information systems manager, etc., went up by 200%. Next slide. And under the new DOL wage system, employers had to pay $100 an hour or 208,000 for over 18,000 occupations, regardless of their skill level, even if they are new hires and newly, and have no experience, fresh graduates. Software developers would have to be paid 200,000 no matter what their skill level, no matter if they are fresh graduates, no matter where they are, even if they're not in big US cities, even in places like Nevada, Reno, Battle Creek, Michigan, they would have to be paid 200,000. Employers would need to pay financial analysts 208,000 versus what their actual prevailing wage is, which is 66,000. So the present prevailing wage does an analysis of what is usually being paid to other employees, and the idea is that H-1B employees should not be paid less. They should be paid the equal amount as that of other US citizens, permanent residents, everybody else is paid. So to maintain a parity between what other people are paid and what H-1B people are paid. So those are statistics, those are numbers. And that's the basis on which you have to do it, it's not done based on politics, right? So these numbers were artificially manufactured, and it resulted in a system whereby nobody could file a H1, file a H1 for anyone. So basically, shutdown of the H1B program. Which employer will pay 200% more for a software, for a systems analyst? Why would they do that? Right? So that would result in a shutdown of the H1B program. Luckily, someone filed a lawsuit, and because of procedural reasons only, because it was done as an interim rule and did not go through the proper regulation, the proper process that a regulation goes through of comment period from the public, getting public opinion. Um, that's why the judge struck it down, and that's why it didn't become law. So if they go through the proper comment period, it's possible that this rule can become a law. This interim rule will actually become, they'll do it as a final regulation, not an interim, and it'll actually become a law. And this will lead to the H-1B program being completely not being used because nobody will use it if the salaries are so high. So this is what to expect if Republicans come back into power. I think with that, are we done with our slides?
Yes, we are. We have a few minutes for Q&A. So let me quickly, I'll pick up the first one. Can we expect speed up for 221G received this year, waiting for H-1Bs almost for months before elections?
221Gs usually take their own processing time, right? It's not unusual for them to take 6 months. Sometimes they even take a year, especially if they have to um, send that information, if they have to do further investigation. They could be doing investigation in your home country, or they could be doing investigation in the US. So they're investigating a certain client, trying to contact the client to get um, information as to whether the job actually exists or not, whether they're contacting the petitioner, the employer. So sometimes that takes time. And there is no standstill of the movement of ICE or USCIS or Department of State. These government bodies continue to function. So I don't see um, any delay in processing because of the elections. But there might be, maybe it is in the best interests of the party to process these cases quickly if they want, um, if they're worried. I mean, Biden has already instituted some laws, executive orders in a hurried fashion. For example, payroll in place, EIP, for those US citizen spouses who cannot file for a green card for various reasons. They're stopping them from being deported because they're immediate family members of US citizens. So they've put in this payroll in place process whereby they can then also get work authorization. And this was done now because they're worried of what will happen after the election. But with reference to the working of these administrative bodies, I don't think that really changes. I think they're doing it at their normal processing speed.
Okay, that helps. How might the election for either candidate influence global perceptions of US immigration policy?
Global perceptions of immigration policy. So we're talking about what other countries perceive US immigration policy to
Yes.
be. I think other countries are aware that, uh, and everyone is aware of what each party stands for, because they've made it very clear in their policy explanations that the Democrats are for common sense immigration policy, stricter enforcement at the border because they don't want people coming in illegally. Um, at the same time, humanitarian, um, they want to continue with their humanitarian um, immigration policy, so granting asylum to deserving cases, refugee, having prosecutorial discretion, so not unnecessarily removing people or detaining them if they are not a threat to, security threat to the US. And under the Republican Party, we can expect that they will be pulling back of immigration. They will try to restrict immigration, close the doors, as you say, as you would put it, um, and make immigration harder even for people who are within the country to extend their visas as well.
All right. Thank you. That answers. So, Prashanti, we still have a couple of minutes left. I would urge anyone in this call, if you have questions, now is the time for you to put in the chat window. Um, I'll ask one more question that we received offline, and then we can quickly wrap this up. The last question I would ask you is, what are the long-term implications of each candidate's immigration policies on the US demographic and cultural landscape? I think you have touched upon some of it, but I thought it'd be an interesting one.
Yes. I mean, again, it's not strictly immigration, so I hesitant to give an opinion, but this is my personal opinion. It's nothing to do with immigration laws. You know, America is a land of opportunity. It's a land of immigrants, and the way it's become a superpower is because of the all the best and the brightest have come to the United States and settled here. If you look at the CEOs of all the major companies, a lot of them are Indians, right? Vast, a big population of them, and compared to the population of Indian immigrants, the number of people who are CEOs is much larger than that. If you look at it percentage wise, which shows that immigrants have done well here. They've also provided jobs. They've provided a lot uh, for the U.S. economy, right? And the United States has always been known as diverse culturally, ethnically, from all points of views. And there are some that want to make the United States into a uniform kind of one kind of people, but that is not possible uh, because then the United States will not be what it is anymore. So without tearing the fabric of what the United States is now, that is not possible. So and it's not something that uh, one should aspire for either, right? So from that point of view, I think I am not for I am for cultural diversity and uh, you know also from not just from a social point of view, but also from an economic point of view and in a financial point of view, and from the general health of the United States economy, and from jobs point of view, from everything, from whatever you look at it, everybody will be better off uh, having common sense immigration policies.
All right. On that note, Prashanti, thank you so very much. We will definitely have another session very soon. So to everyone who have joined today's session, we look forward to seeing you in the next one as well. And once again, Prashanti, thank you so very much.
Don't forget to subscribe to our videos if you like what you see. Also give us a thumbs up and share the video with your family and friends. Thank you.